Hi, I'm Ruban Selvanayagam from Property Solvers. If you've received a below market value offer from a Sell House Fast or We Buy Any Home company, including ourselves, you may be left feeling confused, frustrated, or perhaps even offended. Because when your own research and estate agents suggest one figure, but a cash offer lands well beneath it, the natural question is, how is that justified? For most homeowners, a property hasn't come easily. It's often taken years of saving up for the deposit, mortgage payments, improvements, and hard work. So when an offer arrives that's way under your expectations, it can feel personal. And that's exactly why it's important to explain the logic behind the offers we make. In this video, I'll walk you through how our business model works and why it can produce figures very different from open market valuations. Because once you strip the transaction back to speed, certainty, and risk that companies like ours take on, you'll hopefully be able to understand why and how our pricing structure needs to be lower. Let's dive in. So before we get into the numbers, it's worth recognising that below market value transactions have long existed in the property market. Whilst fast sale companies like ours have been operating for a few decades now, the underlying principle is much older. Take auctions, they've been part of the UK property landscape since the 1700s. Properties are regularly sold below comparable open market figures in exchange for an immediate exchange of contracts and a fixed completion date. Certainty replaces negotiation and prices adjust accordingly. You also see it in pre-auction, where sellers agree a deal in advance to avoid the uncertainty of the auction room or the online platform and get things done quicker. And post-auction, where unsold lots are negotiated at discounted levels to secure a clean transaction. Even through estate agents, sellers often accept lower offers to secure a proceedable buyer, preventing a chain collapsing or just to move quickly. The quick house buying industry didn't invent this principle, it's formalised and structured it. And that brings us to the idea of market value itself. When a property is valued for sale on the open market, usually through an estate agent, that figure rests on a specific set of assumptions. Full exposure across the major portals and other marketing channels, a proactive estate agent, realistic pricing from day one, serious and proceedable buyers, competent conveyancing solicitors on both sides, approved mortgage approvals that hold up during underwriting, amongst a range of other factors. That's the framework that market value is built upon, but given the illiquid nature of home sales, most open market transactions rarely happen quickly because there are so many hurdles. Indeed, in many parts of the UK, a property sale typically takes 6 to 9 months from listing to completion. I'd encourage you to check out our Property Solver Speed of Sale tool, which I'll link in the description, where you can check out the data in your postcode for yourself. What's more, these time periods assume that everything progresses smoothly. It remains a fact that roughly 1 in 3 agreed sales in England and Wales fall through before completion. So when someone says a property is worth a certain price, that figure isn't just about value. It reflects time, prevailing market dynamics, and the likelihood of a successful completion. Remove any one of these conditions, shorten the deadline for the sale to complete, introduce complexity or prioritise certainty, and the economics shift. Because once you introduce time pressure, physical issues with the property, legal complications, broken chains, sitting tenants, probate delays, or simply a desire for a guaranteed completion, for numerous other reasons, the framework shifts. Buyers like us need to absorb those risks and therefore need to price them into the offers we make. Let's work for a simple example and reverse engineer what sits behind a property buying company's offer. The first major cost is stamp duty land tax. Most investors already own property, which means they have to pay the additional dwelling surcharge. Under rules set by HM Revenue and Customs, that's the standard SDLT rate plus the 3% additional property supplement. On a £250,000 purchase, for example, that effectively means £15,000 paid upfront immediately on completion. And that's before any single improvement is made to the property. Next comes legal costs, and as we pay our own and the seller's legal fees, even a straightforward purchase can total £3,000 to £4,000, sometimes more, particularly with leasehold sales. Then we move to refurbishment. Most below market value properties are very rarely pristine. They often require updating, compliance works, gas works, rewiring, damp treatment, roofing repairs, and sometimes replacements, EPC improvements, or overall modernisation beyond just cosmetic tweaks. These days, even modest refurbishment can cost £20,000 to £40,000. Larger projects and those in London and the South East can go well beyond that. Then there are the holding costs. From the day of completion until resale or refinance for a buy-to-let lender, for example, we're locking up heavy amounts of capital into the property, alongside building insurance, utilities, council tax, often at empty property rates, security and ongoing maintenance. If resale takes 4 to 6 months and often more, those costs can add another £6,000 to £10,000. After that, when the property is sold on, there are estate agency or lender fees, legal costs, and the risk of the market softening. Another few £1,000s can disappear right there. And then there's something that many sellers understandably don't see: business overheads. An established home buying company like Property Solvers incurs expenses for staff salaries, internal infrastructure, compliance teams, professional indemnity insurance, portal advertising, CRM systems, and ongoing marketing expenditures, to name a few. Those overheads have to be allocated across our acquisitions, and once you factor in all these costs alongside the wide range of taxes we're subject to, the margin narrows quickly. Property is very capital intensive and quite unforgiving. Small errors can eliminate profit entirely. It's also important to factor in the ongoing costs that you carry as a seller when a property sits on the market. Utility bills, council tax, insurance, maintenance, mortgage payments. On top of that, there are estate agency fees and legal costs payable on completion, which we would cover if you were to sell to us. Those costs don't disappear, they accumulate over time. You continue to retain ownership of the property. And the longer the sale takes, or the greater the risk of it falling through, the more exposure sellers carry. And this is why many genuine below market value offers tend to fall in the 70 to 75% range, depending on complexity, timeline, and overall risk. That isn't about opportunism, it's about structure. Now, you may come across other companies in our space advertising that they pay up to 85% of market value and sometimes more. The key phrase here is up to, so let's just run the maths. To take our example of a property worth $250,000 on the open market, and assume that a buyer were to pay 85%, so that's $212,500. Under the current SDLT thresholds for an additional property, that purchase attracts £12,375 in stamp duty alone. Add to that roughly £3,000 in legal fees, let's say £20,000 in refurbishment, £8,000 in holding costs, and perhaps £5,000 in resale or refinance fees. So that's about £48,000 in additional costs. So the total capital invested becomes close to £261,000. Now imagine the improved property resales or refinances at £275,000. On the surface, that looks like a healthy uplift from the £212,500 purchase price. But once you deduct all the costs, the actual gross profit is just above £14,000. That's just over a 5% margin before corporation tax, overhead allocation, contingencies, and unforeseen issues, which there often are in our business. And in today's higher interest rate environment with slower liquidity and stricter lender stress testing, those margins don't stretch very far. In a rising market with cheap finance, perhaps 85% works more comfortably. But in current conditions, unless a property is in excellent shape, it's very difficult to sustain that level consistently across different property types and risk profiles. It's also important to say this clearly as a word of warning. There are some operators in the sector that agree higher headline figures, often around the 85% level, only to reduce the price as the exchange of contracts approaches, when the seller's back is somewhat against the wall. Unfortunately, our industry is not regulated in the same way as banking or other financial services, which means that last-minute renegotiation can and does happen. But if a deal only works by lowering the price late in the process, the original figure was never properly structured. Sustainable pricing means agreeing a number that genuinely works from the outset. As a seller, you should also remember that you're not locked in. If terms change, you can walk away. There are alternative buyers, including ourselves, who can step in quickly if needed. It's also worth recognizing that below market value sales are typically driven by circumstance. Financial pressure, probate delays, chain collapse fatigue, relocation deadlines, tenanted properties that mortgage buyers avoid, structural or mortgageability issues that limit traditional lending options, amongst many others. Property solvers work with sellers who want clarity and commitment. For them, speed and a binding exchange are what matter most. Removing the chain, fixing the timeline, guaranteeing completion, those outcomes shift the risk from seller to buyer, but the pricing needs to be adjusted accordingly. That said, we're not in the business of sharp practice or forcing people to go down the fast house sale route. The starting point is always suitability. If a seller can achieve a better result through either their current or our own express estate agency within their timeframes, we'll say so. We'll never suggest a quick sell route if we feel like you've got other options. Indeed, 9 times out of 10, all that's required is a simple reduction in the price with the estate agent to get the sale moving for the optimum price. Alternatively, if auction creates competitive bidding and a stronger outcome, that may be the right route. Traditional auction, a service that we have here at Property Solvers, for example, provides immediate exchange at the fall of the hammer, a 10% deposit paid straight away, and a fixed completion period. That removes gazundering and buyer withdrawal risk, but it does require legal pack preparation, non-discrete marketing, and viewing exposure. It's also not as instant nor as quick as selling directly to our acquisitions companies, but it can produce strong results where investor demand is competitive. There's also another middle ground that we offer, compromise through investor introductions. A corporate home buying company carries overheads, an individual investor often doesn't. And that allows slightly stronger pricing in certain cases. So instead of selling to a buying company at say 70 to 75%, it may be possible to structure a direct investor sale closer to 80% or occasionally higher, where the deal stacks up and the timelines are clear. The investor secures value, the seller gains speed and certainty, and the transaction avoids the extended uncertainty of open market exposure. It doesn't work in every case, but it is a viable option when handled transparently. So the key takeaway is this: below market value isn't about exploitation. It's about cost structure, risk allocation, and security. Every seller's position is different. The open market will deliver the best result if you're willing to be patient. Auctions provide competitive tension and strong processes. A direct investor deal may offer compromise, and a structured fast sale can remove problems that traditional sales often can't. Our role is to lay out the numbers clearly, explain the trade-offs honestly, and consider all routes, not just one. Because the right solution isn't always the highest theoretical price. It's the one that actually completes cleanly and reliably within your required time frame. Something reflected in the hundreds of 5-star reviews from sellers we've worked with. So if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more transparent breakdowns of how the UK property market really works. A big thanks for watching.